Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Australia's Great Barrier Reef is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. You can see it from space, but scientists say rising water temperatures have stripped the colour from around 2/3 of it, and it's in danger of being destroyed. Mass bleaching happens when the coral gets stressed. It makes it fragile and can kill it. The reef is home to more than 130 species of shark and 1,600 varieties of fish. Our science editor David Shookman reports.
A world of brilliant colour teeming with life. This is the Great Barrier Reef at its best. The largest single biological structure on Earth, but vulnerable to the slightest change. This is how parts of the reef look now. A ghostly white. The corals more like a graveyard than a thriving habitat. A new survey has found long stretches of the reef have turned pale for the 2nd year running, giving the corals no chance to recover. And the scientist in charge says he's worried.
It seems likely that between this event and last event, roughly 50% of the corals on the Great Barrier Reef will have died in a period of less than 18 months. That by any measure is a huge blow to the Great Barrier Reef.
What's happening to the Great Barrier Reef is deeply shocking to the scientists who are studying the bleaching of the coral. This gives you an idea of what's at stake. On the left, this is healthy coral, rich in colour. On the right, that's coral that's turned white and is at risk of dying. Healthy coral has algae growing inside it, providing energy. But if the water's too warm, the algae are expelled, which leaves the coral bleached and starving. Now, last year, scientists found that the northern third of the Great Barrier Reef was most badly hit. That's where the waters are usually warmest. This time, the central section has suffered worst, and that's surprising because usually the waters there are slightly cooler. And being bleached 2 years running makes it all the harder for the corals to recover. It can take a decade at least. Some corals are weaker than others and are less likely to survive in warmer waters. So scientists are trying to find out which ones may recover.
Coral can bleach, but it doesn't necessarily die. So it's, but if a coral bleaches year after year, then that is going to reduce its ability to recover. So 2 years in a row is worrying.
The reef faces all kinds of threats, from pollution to industrial development. But on top of them, there's climate change, bringing higher temperatures, which makes bleaching ever more likely. David Shookman, BBC News.
More than 2/3 of the coral in Australia's Great Barrier Reef is experiencing shocking amounts of bleaching. New aerial surveys have shown how 2 bleaching events close together have devastated a 900-mile stretch of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. More evidence, if any were needed, of climate change, as the bleaching is the direct result of rising sea temperatures. So what should be done? Christiana Figueres, the former UN climate change chief, was a key architect of the Paris Climate Agreement, making the world's nations agree for the first time to a binding commitment to tackle global warming. She's leading a new campaign called Mission 2020, which aims to stop the rise in all carbon emissions in just 3 years. Our science editor Tom Clark went to meet her.
This is what a dying coral reef looks like. Just 12 months after the worst known bleaching event on Australia's Great Barrier Reef, it's happened again. The warmth of the ocean means the colour is draining from coral along 2/3 of the 1,400-mile-long reef. For the woman who brokered the Paris Climate Agreement, it's a very timely reminder of how little time there is to cut greenhouse gas emissions.
2/3 is actually a fraction that is burned into my mind, because we have actually already used up 2/3 of all of the emissions that we can put up into the atmosphere. So we only have 1/3 left for the rest of the history of humanity if we choose to stay on this planet.
In Paris in December 2015, she stood flanked by the almost entirely male leadership of the world. Where others had failed, she closed the global deal to cut carbon emissions. Today, Figueres is launching Mission 2020, a call to remind the world that to meet the pledges made at Paris, carbon emissions must peak in just 3 years' time. That means no more fossil fuels for energy or for transport, and a lot less of this. But her message is not one of sacrifice, but opportunity.
Hello, didn't we just see the opening of a factory in Coventry that is going to produce the new electric vehicles that are going to be the taxis in London? What does that mean? We're going to have taxis that are non-polluting, and we're creating jobs in Coventry. Decarbonization is irreversible because it is going on the back of the economic interests of countries, of corporations, and of investors.
Her path to world's most influential environmentalist was shaped, she tells me, by becoming a mother, and how that coincided with the disappearance in 1989 of this, the golden toad, then found only in the forests of her native Costa Rica and now extinct.
And then now I'm turning over to my daughters a planet that not only doesn't have that species, but so many others are disappearing. I just don't think it's the responsible thing to do. And furthermore, the next generation has absolutely no responsibility in this. They didn't do this, it's us. And we are the first generation that has all the science around this. The previous generation didn't. We are the first generation that has all the technology to solve this. And we're the first generation that has all the finance to solve it.
But is there the will? Europe is distracted by political crises, and America is now led by a climate skeptic.
But they must be a setback to have someone who's got ideological issues with progress in this area.
If I flatly deny gravity, that does not change the gravitational pull on me, on you, or on anybody else on this planet. While we were in the sphere of politics, I would say maybe 5 to 10 years ago, we're no longer into the sphere of politics. This is no longer about ideology. This is about sheer economics.
The bleaching of the barrier reef is reversible if sea temperatures stop rising, and that might just be doable if you think like Christiana Figueres.
Tom Clark reporting there.